No, exactly.
Totally.
Exactly.
Yes.
Anyway, we found a solution to the hacking thing, which is the waiting room. I've started a new recording. I say that for Nolan's benefit. Okay. And do we need a break before we start, or how are people feeling? I need to run to the bathroom myself.
No worries. We can take a break. But I have to leave at 1:45.
Okay. Okay.
Because I have another one to go to.
Sure. Okay. Why don't we just take a couple-minute break, and then I'll introduce Sailesh, and I'll just pause in the meantime.
All right.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome, Sailesh. It is a real honor and joy to have Sailesh with us every week now for the past several weeks on a series that is called Healing the Planet, or How Not to Go Extinct. And today we are on part 6, Economy. So please give a warm welcome to Sailesh, and Sailesh, please lead us. And when it comes time to Q&A, I'll manage the Q&A. I'll also manage the waiting room, so you can just focus on the presentation. Welcome, Sailesh. We love you so much and are so happy you're here.
Thank you so much, Jamin. I'm going to give the same presentation that I gave last year, but modified it with respect to where we are today. So let me start sharing. Okay. So today we'll talk about the economy. And as Jamin said, it's part of a 7-part series. This is the 6th part. The 7th part is going to happen next week, and it's personal. So all the recordings will be available on our webinar page once we have gone through all 7 parts. So the definition of economy is, this is the definition that I took from Google's definition for kids. It says the economy is the careful use of money, resources, and means of production for the well-being of the community. So it is about the community, not about individual. Okay. And the second definition is the system of how money is created and earned within a community. So money is literally like a game we are playing to help us decide how we allocate our time and our resources. And so the first definition makes it clear that this is about allocating our time and resources for the well-being of the community. And we are now part of the greatest transformation in human history. We are here. We have been put into this chrysalis phase of the caterpillar. So I've talked about the 7 core shifts as is fundamental to the transformation, and how we are moving from the predator species to the caretaker species. And this is the analogy, the metamorphosis is the analogy. And we are now in the chrysalis phase. So we've been put into the chrysalis phase. And here is a poem that I found on Facebook that I wanted to show you. I kind of adapted it a bit. And you'll notice where I adapted it. So it's an ode to the chrysalis. We fell asleep in one world and woke up in another. Suddenly, Disney is out of magic. Paris is no longer romantic. New York doesn't stand up anymore. The Chinese wall is no longer a fortress, and Mecca is empty. Hugs and kisses are now weapons, and not visiting friends and parents is an act of love. Power, beauty, and money are worthless and can't get you the oxygen you're fighting for. The earth continues its life, and it is beautiful. It only put us humans in cages. It is sending us a message. You're part of something much larger than you. Please remember that when you come back. Please start giving more than you're taking. And finally, please stop pretending that you can do this without going vegan. And you can see the last line I put in there. We have to be honest with ourselves now. We have to do things as engineers. Engineers who say, who have to face the truth. the 3 stages of the imaginal self. I shared this on Facebook as well. So the first stage is fear, because it is a change. It's a massive transformation in our lives. So we do panic buying, we get annoyed, we stock up on toilet paper and food and medicine. And then comes the learning stage, the learning zone, where we start letting go of the control. Stop consuming what doesn't really make us feel good, from news to food. And recognize that we're all trying to do our best to face a complicated situation. So don't assume bad things about other people. Just think that they're all coming from either the fear zone or the learning zone and the growth zone. The finally is the growing zone. In the growing zone, you think about others and how to help them. So you truly become an imaginal self. You figure out how are you going to participate in the butterfly. When we come out of this as a butterfly, find your purpose in life. Be grateful that we are part of this, the greatest transformation in human history. So many people have been alive before us and they were not part of this. We are now part of this. Okay. And so let's live in the present and let's get going. This is the transformation that's happening. And it's a transformation from the old to the new. The old is still, trying, flailing around. Facebook's Libra currency is going to happen. I mean, they're going to come up with this because all these big companies are part of the same structure. And they're going to desperately try and come up with a vaccine and wake us up and say, go back to consuming the way you used to consume. Go back to being a butterfly, being a caterpillar. But I think it's impossible to revive the caterpillar now. This is it. We have gone through this. The old system of creating money, it's kept us in this zone of fear because it is always based on loans. So every dollar that there is in circulation right now has a debt associated with it. Okay? Because at any given point in time, there is more debt than there is money. So people are constantly trying to figure out how to give back that debt, give back that money. So for even $100 deposit that we put in the bank goes out as loans. 90% of it goes out as loans. And then when that comes back, another 90% goes out as loans. So this mechanism, we are taking the original $100 and creating like $900 out of it. Okay, and this is how we grow the economy. And the way the system we have for earning money right now is either you beg, and nowadays, even if you beg, you're not going to get any money because there's no one around. So you have to borrow, which means you have to convince a bank that you can return it, or you have to work. And that is the main avenue right now that's available to people. Okay. And I just read an article in Guardian about the delivery people who are doing delivery of food. And they're scared. They're scared that they're going to catch this virus. They see, their friends getting sick. So it is fear that's driving the current system. Okay? And the only reason they're doing that work is because they have no other way of earning money and paying for the rent. This fractional reserve money system promotes competition for resources, and at the level of nations, it promotes endless war. It promotes sexism, as women are considered as spoils of war, because that's the metaphor, that's the method that we have been using all along. It promotes colonialism, class warfare, and predatory behavior among those who accumulated the wealth, because they're trying to use that wealth to make people do things for them. It promotes endless material growth and the false story that material growth is necessary for human prosperity, and that is being shattered right now. So we know that that's not true. Promotes the objectification of the other, and it keeps our consciousness at a low, fear-based, ego-driven, grasping, owning level. And so this is not conducive to sustainability at all. So it's about getting out of this and moving to something better. And the way we create money in the current system, it discourages natural abundance. So it fosters scarcity. Okay. And so you can see now, suddenly all the governments, the states have become socialists. They don't want to compete with each other for ventilators anymore, right? There's no longer this capitalism is out the window. They're saying, let's get together and pay a fixed price for the ventilators. Well, that means, you are telling them that this system of pricing has to be out the window. We don't want this system of pricing where artificially we can increase the price by creating scarcity. It's a system that promotes artificial scarcity. And the foundation of it is in the food system. It's a food system that makes us do everything that we are doing the way we are doing it now. In the food system, we are taking so much food from the planet, 9 gigatons of food, and feeding most of it to our animals. And our animals are giving us, 1/40th the amount of food that we feed them. Okay, and along with it, they're giving us pandemics. They're giving us, every known pandemic. My God, I was watching Dr. Michael Greger's video, and I was shocked. I didn't know that cholera came from animals, typhoid came from animals, the common cold came from animals, the influenza came from animals, leprosy came from animals. Every known disease came from animals. And all along, we were just told, hey, this is the way it is, because they didn't, I would say 100 years ago, we didn't know. Okay, it took us some detective work to figure out that they all came from animals. And that happened in the last 30, 40 years. So I can forgive those who did this hundreds of years ago. But now that we know, we have a responsibility to change. Okay? Now that we know that every one of those diseases came from animals, it's our responsibility to transition to a vegan world. And no more excuses for this. Because we've been lying to ourselves. We've been lying about protein. We've been listening to all this marketing that people do because they are trying to sell their wares. We've been lying about emissions. Even it's the leading cause of climate change, and nobody wants to acknowledge that. Just like people don't want to acknowledge that it's the leading cause of cancer. They don't want to acknowledge it's the leading cause of climate change as well. It promotes pollution and diseases. We are, pouring toxins into the environment, getting them concentrated in animal foods, and then eating that and getting all these diseases. And now we are getting pandemics too. And we are trying to figure out how to deal with the pandemics without even talking about the leading cause, without even talking about what made it happen in the first place. So that is literally, it's sheer stupidity, really, when you think about it. And it's promoting perverse subsidies. People are trying to still, you see, the $2 trillion, billions of dollars are going to this industry, propping them up. Promotes colonialism and endless war. And this is the pandemics, right? It's like, how many times do we have to do this before we realize maybe we should stop butting our heads against the pole, and instead of saying, should I take Tylenol or Advil, we should just stop it. How many times do we have to do it before we realize, right? And we have to use the right tools. They say it's very important for us to transition our currency system to a system in which abundance is normal, as opposed to scarcity be normal, where it is not based on loans and returning loans. They're not based on fear. And that is the Aquarius system. And we are working on an app for this. And we are now positioning the app around food. So it's, you order food and you basically can, you will get a free meal being set aside that people can pay using Aquarius currency. Okay. So they can then do acts of compassion to increase the amount of currency that they have in their wallet. So so here the idea is very simple. The idea here is that human beings are the source of all currency, not a single bank. Every human being is a source of currency. Every human being is a source of compassion. So it's measuring compassion in the world. So the compassion comes into the heart, So I call it karunas because karuna means compassion, Sanskrit. It's very similar to corona. And it comes into the heart. A little bit of it goes into our pocket all the time. And this is what we can use to pay for the free food. And a little bit of it goes into the community chest. That becomes something that restaurants can use, or other people, communities can use to pay for vegetables that are grown or grains that are grown in this economy, the Aquarius economy, right? So the idea here is that money is automatic. It comes to you automatically. So you don't have to fight for it. But you know how to increase what you have by just going and doing acts of compassion. So the system of earning money is by doing acts of compassion to human beings, to the animals, to the earth, and by creating things. And everything has to be open source. So nothing is private. It's all given away. So we are all doing things for the good of the whole, not for the good of the individual. And it has to be based on science and the truth. It cannot be based on lies, marketing anymore. It has to be based on science and the truth. And it should essentially create the new game of Aquarius automatically should create this transformation in our minds, in our hearts, and in the system itself. It aligns with the true nature because compassion is at the core of our being. It raises our consciousness. And so then we can look into details. So this is really what we are trying to do with the summit that's been happening, the Climate Healers Summit. Is initially it's about the learning, so you overcome the fear and the learning, and now it's about the gifting. How can we contribute as in the chrysalis phase? And so there are all these details that we need to work out. Okay, and so we're going to be having detailed conferences. So today we're going to talk about the Pinky Promise Tour. So it is the beginning of the solutions phase. And then we're going to have detailed conferences on health and then on economy and so on, so that we can start writing down our specs for what should this system look like, the Aquarius system look like, when we get out of this. So here are all the questions. There are a whole lot of questions. There's, Keith Akers has been doing, and Ray Kowalczyk have been doing great work here, just diving into these questions and figuring out how to solve them, how to address them. How do we change what's happening here? So this is the shift questions, how do we change the subsidies? How do we get governments to start subsidizing vegan food that is good for you so that it'll send less people to the hospital, At the one hand, they're complaining that the hospitals are full. On the other hand, they're subsidizing food that makes people go to the hospital in the first place. Right? This is the stupidity of this has to be pointed out so that they see it. And here are all the new model questions that we have to answer. And again, there are people looking into it. So this is part of my tour, is to get more people to come and join us so that we can start looking into these questions and coming up with a consensus. So thank you very much. I do have to leave by 12:45 so that I can attend my other summit.
And that's over an hour from now, right?
Right. Yeah, it's an hour.
Okay.
So.
Good. All right. So we have plenty of time then for questions and comments. Are you opening it up for questions and comments?
Yes. Let's
Okay.
have it open. Yeah, let's
Great.
open it up for questions.
And I'll take it off of screen share, if that's all right.
Sure.
Okay. All righty. So I'll manage the queue. If there is a queue right now, no one's in the queue. So feel free to just jump in with a question or comment.
I have a comment, actually.
Yes, sweetheart.
Oh, Sailesh, I love what you're saying. That makes so much sense. It's so obvious, and yet it's not. And what I just wanted to remark on is how ironic is it that the systems that are still functioning in this old dysfunctional way are actually meeting head on the problems that they've actually created. So if you take the medical profession, isn't that interesting that the providers, they keep working within the system instead of thinking, well, this isn't working, so what is not working here, and how can I as an individual make a change? They're stuck entrenched in the system. But what's happening now is they're overwhelmed with the result of their having been entrenched in the old system. So I actually think, even though that's really horrific, it's actually a really positive thing that hopefully, like you're saying, with by being forced inward to kind of look at things and see that things really aren't working. In fact, it's so bad, we're overwhelmed, that they will, as individuals, start to awaken a new way of looking at what how they've been living, how they've been acting, and how they've been working.
Right. Yeah, I was, the second interview we had in the summit was with Dr. John McDougall. So I asked him, how many days do you have to eat correctly in order to feel the difference? And his answer was 4 days. He said 4 to 7 days, you will see the difference. So I think we have to figure out ways to get good food to people, okay? Especially when they are desperate for food.
Yeah.
Get good food to people so that they feel the difference very quickly. And I think that's probably their hearts.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to mention that the pandemic's really forcing us to get very creative. And so one of the things I've been doing is offering to children online art classes. And I've come up with this idea of grab and go art kits. So they're all been packed carefully and left for 48 hours just in case. And then the parents can come by my studio and pick them up from the curb. But what I've packed them with is upcycled materials. So I was because I've been thinking, well, what if we can't buy things anymore? We got so in the system of buying, purchasing, production, more stuff. I was like, well, so what can we use that we can find around us? Tea, dirt, leaves. And then within my own studio, which is packed with materials from years of being an artist, I'm like, well, I'm not going to start giving the kids brand new paper and things anymore. I'm going to give them stuff that's been used already. And I know that they're going to look at this and go, ew, this paper is dirty, But I thought this is such a great opportunity for re-educating young minds and their parents about, just a different way of thinking about this whole production line that we've created. Like, how can we do things differently?
Right. Absolutely. Those are the gifts that we have to give now, right? So gifts of reimagining, repurposing things.
Beautiful. All righty. Miles has his hand up, and then Jamin wants to make a comment after Miles. So go ahead, Miles.
Hello, Dr. Rao. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for Dr. Naik. Her presentation is fantastic. I highly recommend it to everybody to learn about, she does lung transplants, so she knows what she's talking about with respect to the virus. One of the things you said, Dr. Rao, is that we have to be like engineers, but unfortunately, I would say that that is insufficient, because there's a lot of engineers that do try to do the right thing, but I presented this book a little earlier here. It's called Corporate Confidential. And this is a human resources executive who blows the lid off of the corporations. And in this book, Corporate Confidential, some of the things she talks about in this book is that there's no right to free speech in the workplace. And there's a long list of engineers who tried to tell corporations that something's not being done right, and they've paid the price for trying to do that. Age discrimination exists because as we get older, we tend to understand that all's not right in Denmark, where the emperor has no clothes.
Right.
Why being too smart is not smart in many corporations, and that human resources is not there to help you, but to protect the company from you. So anyway, engineers, yes, are trying to do their best. They take professional oaths to be truthful, but they're often squashed. So we do have to change the corporate culture. And you did allude to that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of experience with that too. You know, I was working for a corporation, a big corporation. And as long as your job is to get something to work, you have to tell the truth. Otherwise, you cannot make it work. Okay, so that one, they let me do that. And then when it went to another group to do the second revision of that product, and they failed. So the second revision failed. And then they asked me to go take a look at why it failed. And I looked at it and I said, well, it failed because they redesigned everything and they messed it up in the process. Okay. So I recommended to my manager that they should start over and copy what was done and just do the process translation that they were supposed to be doing in the first place, you know, doing their original job. But they had, you know, they had the connection with my manager's manager. So, so you see how the politics works, right? So they convinced him that it's not such a big problem. It's just a tiny little bug. We'll fix it. Okay. And so they said that to him. And then, so when my manager went to his manager and said, you know, we need to start over, that's what Dr. Rao is recommending, his manager fired him. Okay. So my manager calls me up and he says, oh my God, I got fired for telling my boss exactly what you told me. So I said, okay, in that case, I resign. So, you know, there are these things that you have to do. Say, look, I have given you my opinion. If you don't want to take it, I don't want to sit here and watch you fail. Therefore, I quit. So I quit. And they all, at first, they all said, oh, wow, you know, is it that serious that you're quitting for it? And I said, yeah, because you're going to be out of this business. If you don't do it right, you're going to be out of this business. So I quit, and HR came to me. And as you said, the HR was on the side of the corporation, obviously, right? They were making sure that I left without any intellectual property of the company. They told me that everything I know about what's happening, it belongs to the company. So your brain belongs to my company, you know. So you cannot use it for anything else. All those things were told to me, and then I left. And of course, once in a while, I get feedback from the company that, yeah, what I said did happen. They had to exit the business because they completely failed. And they were just buying parts from outside from that point on. But, you know, as an engineer, I feel like I have to take a stand. I mean, because I know when something is not going to work, I have to say it to people. It's not going to work if we continue this. And the same is true here. If we continue this, if we continue with vaccines and, you know, saying, well, you're not going to change the system, we're going to go back to being consumers again, you are going to fail. The civilization is going to fail badly. It's only going to get worse. So this is the time for transformation. We have been given this opportunity for transformation. See, in the Bhagavad Gita also, you know, God tells man, I'll give you advice. I've given you all this advice, but ultimately the decision is yours. You have a choice. So we all have a choice as to what it is that we are going to support. Aha. Thank you. Yeah, it's in the 18th chapter, he says that.
Okay.
All righty. Great stuff. Sailesh, in talking before, we've talked about this idea, but I want to re-articulate it. It's basically your idea, but taken very large, which is the delivery of nutritious vegan foods to all people worldwide, to their homes, organized by all of us, by all of humanity. Ideally, the governments would take the lead on this because they have the resources and power and whatnot. But just to be clear, there's three things we can accomplish in one blow. We can end world hunger and malnutrition. We can get the whole world to go vegan, and we can stop the coronavirus. Because why do people have to leave their homes? The main reason people are leaving their homes is to get food. A secondary reason is to go to doctor's appointments. I totally understand that, but food is the biggie, right? So if we were, and right now, how is food being delivered to homes? Uber drivers, Lyft, whatever, using their own standards or lack thereof. Each restaurant sets their own standards or lack thereof. Each Uber driver sets their own standards or lack thereof. So it's a crapshoot. The food that you get delivered may or may not have the coronavirus. And the poor Uber driver may or may not get coronavirus. The restaurant workers, et cetera, et cetera. What this urgently begs for is massive organization, the setting of standards, and organized, centralized preparation of food, purchase of grains and vegetables and whatnot, purchase of plant foods, processing according to very high standards, and then delivery. And the delivery could be, the big centralized delivery could be to deliver pallet-sized quantities of foods to specific neighborhoods, and then the neighborhood group that's responsible takes it finally to the individual doorsteps. But I just wanted to throw that open. I mean, if that indeed is what we should be aiming for, and it doesn't seem like anything short of that will really solve the problem. That's how China solved the problem. Right? So we can learn from China. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that open to you, Sailesh, and to others. How do we go about making that happen? Right.
Yeah, I mean, we can actually think about the standards you would set. How do you how to cook, how to package, how to clean, make sure that how to deliver, and then have. Right now, the best I can think of is to get the restaurants to sign on to those standards and say that they're meeting, help them meet the standards, so that you can use the existing distributed system we have to accomplish our objective, which is the China-style food delivery. It's our ultimate objective. But we don't have a government that supports us for that. We don't have a government that supports giving vegan food in the first place. They are still subsidizing meat and dairy.
This beckons for like a campaign that could go viral. Just imagine the campaign, food, not Corona. Food, not Corona. And it makes it real clear. There's a choice here. If we feed people, we'll stop the coronavirus, right? If we don't feed people...
Jamin, and maybe Dr. Rao can comment. You presented the chart, and I think it was 9 gigatons of plant food is then divided into 3 directions.
Right.
And the very smallest wasn't even a full 1 gigaton. Could we take this chart and say, okay, this is our current situation. The chart over here is the desired situation. And this is going to show people very dramatically, graphically, what Jamin is talking about, that we have the opportunity to create tremendous amounts of free food. But people need this comparison. They need something to graphically, visually understand what the situation is now and what we want to go to.
Right, yeah. No, yeah, we have to ask, do we Are the leaders not educated about this, or are the leaders pretending not to be educated about it? We are showing this and doing this campaign is about educating the public that we have been conned into this all along. We have been deceived into doing this all along. And this is the way out for you not to get into these emergency rooms and ICUs. Just get healthier. Then you don't have to get into these emergency rooms and ICUs with this virus. Because this virus is going to affect us eventually, all of us. It'll be like the flu virus. It'll be back, right? So we have to think about this long term. See, how do you deal with this in the long run? Why is it affecting Americans so much more, or Italians so much more? Because of our food habits and our chronic diseases that we have. We have been ingesting this kind of food for such a long time.
Yes, Maida.
Hi, Sailesh. It is very interesting that you're mentioning that. I've, as the bachelor's degree that I'm doing right now, the first topic that we did was the Chinese traditional medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that the Chinese has a lot of wisdom. I mean, we're talking about Chinese traditional medicine from 10,000 years ago, before Jesus Christ. And Lucy, since Lucy is one of the ones that is giving that Chinese course, because she went back in the 70s, and she went and studied acupuncture and studied all her type of medicine, alternative medicine over there. She was telling us that back in the 70s and the 80s, Chinese people, they would have strictly at a certain time of the day, whatever they were doing, whether they were riding their bike, they were working, wherever, they would stop their day and their routine, and they would exercise. They would do Tai Chi, Tai Do, any type of martial arts. They were eating healthy. And the moment when they lost all this amazing wisdom that they carry, it was the moment when Coca-Cola took in, Burger King came in, and it's devastating. However, now they showed us how they were able to control that pandemic. And it's amazing that our governments, they're not willing to take that quantum jump to realize that it's all within the way we eat. It's all within the way we think.
Mm-hmm.
Because our body is energy. But yeah, just wanted to drop that, and I definitely agree with everything that you're saying.
Thank you. No, thank you for that input on the Chinese medicine.
Yes, we know that the acupuncture comes from Chinese traditional medicine. And I mean, people get healed with different type of illness, asthma, just by touching those energy spots into your body, because Chinese knows that your healing comes within your own energy. But yeah, it's a very interesting. I love Chinese traditional medicine, to be honest with you. Right now we are studying Ayurveda, which I love it too, the Indian Indian traditional medicine. But yeah, it's a very interesting course, and to learn about that culture of the Chinese, how it's amazing how even Donald Trump keeps on blaming and saying the Chinese pandemic or whatever. No, it's not about that. It's that in a certain time of our lives, we got lost. Everybody, we got lost into satisfying, I don't even know what it was. Maybe just satisfying our mouths, our palates with horrible ways of eating. And I include myself into that because I love Pepsi. And I know that Pepsi is bad for me because of the caffeine, but just with me just feeling that gassy in my throat, it satisfies me. And I'm already aware that I should not be drinking it, but I'm at least drinking it only once a week now. Before I wasn't even drinking it as much, but in the wisdom that I have and knowing that I should not be touching it, I mean, and I should not be drinking it, because within my knowledge, I should not even be drinking caffeine.
Right.
So, but anyways, very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, great stuff. Miles is back. Go ahead, Miles.
Thank you. So a couple of days ago, I was invited by Sherry Mitchell, who is of the Penobscot First Nations in Maine. Her book is Sacred Instructions. We had the Divine Feminine speaking just prior to this. Sherry Mitchell, her native name is Wainam Hamu Kawasat, means she who brings the light. And this is indigenous wisdom for living spirit-based change. One of the things that she said, she was a elders shared a prophecy of theirs, and apparently they have there's a prophecy that the animals got together and had a convention. They held a conference, and the animals decided, because we were causing them so much pain and suffering, that they would send us disease. The good news, though, is the plants also got together and had a conference, and they said they will help the human beings if they will cure us if we come to them. Now, one other thing I'd like to add is I read by Charles Mann his book 1493. He also has a book called 1491. And in this book, he lists all the diseases that we brought over to North America. There's like probably 24 diseases, and the only disease here in 1491 was one disease. So a great graphic to go along with the presentation will be to feature these zoonotic diseases. So in other words, not only are we feeding these animals all this ridiculous amount of food, but these are all the zoonotic diseases that we are getting from them. Plus, as Dr. McDougall said, diabetes is a zoonotic disease.
Right.
Heart disease is a zoonotic disease, and other diseases. So, yeah, we've got a great opportunity here. Thank you.
And the other big one I don't know if we've talked about is sugar. Refined sugar, very bad. That also needs to be on the hit list.
It's all processed food.
Yeah.
Food that this is why the app, we are focusing on whole food, plant-based dishes only. Because we want dishes that are healthful for people and tasty too. So we need to get these chefs to have a competition as to how can they make whole food, plant-based tasty.
Yeah, and the other thing, Sailesh, that I've been noticing is because I have time to cook again, and I've talked about this before, like I could take an hour chopping an onion and experimenting with how to cut it and how could I cut it to get the best aroma out of it. And I'm even enjoying my eyes watering and the whole experience. But what I've noticed is because I've slowed down and I'm appreciating the food, and I'm appreciating and putting my love into the preparation of the food, and I'm taking my time, that actually the food tastes better and my body is healthier. So it's having a direct impact on our family's health. And there's no meat.
Yes. And Dr. McDougall also said, if your electricity goes out, what do you want to have in your home to eat? Potatoes, rice, those are the things that you don't need the refrigeration, right? Lentils and things like that.
And this seems like a really good way to have the conversation, is maybe to break it into two parts. Part one, if we want to stop the coronavirus, we need to deliver food to people's homes. right?
Mhm.
Part two, simplistically, once we've essentially gotten the world to agree to part one, right, which has already been proven by the Chinese, now part two, okay, if we're going to deliver foods, what foods should we be delivering? Whole foods,
Right.
processed foods, foods that you need to cook at home in order before eating them,
Right.
or foods that are already cooked, right? So all these questions come up, but I think by breaking it down into two parts, that might be perhaps a way to sell the world on it more readily, because the first part is very simple. Hey, we want to stop the spread of the virus, keep people at home. How do you keep people at home? Bring the food to them rather than forcing them to go out and
Right.
get the food.
Right. Yeah.
Also, I would just like to add there. I would just like to add there as well to that. What's vital to us with the coronavirus situation now? A lot of people are becoming aware of how vital your immune system is, and not only are we being provided with the meat that brings the viruses, but it is also full of antibiotics that destroy our own immune systems as well. So it's not only bringing the virus, it's destroying our immune systems in the process, because it's full of so many antibiotics that it makes our own immune systems weaker.
Mhm.
And so it's not only bringing the virus, it's making us weaker against them as well. So why not build your immune system with good, healthy, nourishing, natural foods?
All right. Maida has her hand up. Go ahead, Maida.
Yeah. Here I am again. We do know that a lot of calcium and sugar, it blocks our pineal gland. I do highly believe that the way that maybe religion or maybe political wise, the way that they started bringing out processed foods, I highly believe that there was an intention to have humanity block their most potential ways of wisdom. And now we know that the universe is very wise, and we are getting connected back to that in a very challenging way, because within this new era that we are in right now, we are learning that, for instance, myself, I would always have difficulties going to Whole Foods stores because I cannot afford that. I can afford Trader Joe's and Sprouts and all those places. So when I would do my grocery list, my only ways were the store right here around the corner or Fry's Foods, but their organic foods is very limited.
Mhm.
So now we don't only have a way of rethinking that to keep our immune system up and to keep ourselves healthier is through whole foods. And the more processed foods that we're eating, the more meat that we're eating, the more milk and eggs that we're eating, we're only contaminating ourselves and getting more vulnerable to this virus. And I forgot what I was gonna say next. But yeah, definitely. The other day I was talking with a friend, and she's like, "Oh, well, I'm working out from home, working online, and I get to order my foods now from different places." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, but the economy is gonna collapse. You need to start saving up money and buying the most essential that you need."
Right.
And she had second thoughts over that, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, why did I ever think about that?" So sadly and unfortunately for many of us, life itself is going to push us through that kind of, I guess, a tunnel. What for a lot of people it might seem a dark tunnel. For me, it's not. but we have to. There's no way out through this. We have to be put into that situation to realize how much we were damaging our own bodies. A lot of people say, oh, it's God is punishing us. You know, we see this in a lot of religious people. Not that I have nothing against religion, neither religious people, but they see this as a punishment from God, and it's not. It's God loving you. You were killing the God inside of you with the way you were eating, your lifestyle. You were too accelerated in your life, and life itself had to put you as a pause, a stop, so you can rethink and meditate and put mindfulness in all the things that you were not doing right.
Yeah. I think someone said, I think it was Kaur who said, the darkness of the tomb is also the darkness of the womb.
Yes, very wise words.
Yeah. So the tunnel that you're being pushed through, as you pointed out, is really a birth canal, so that we come out at the other end as butterflies. So that helps us overcome the fear, of this era.
Yes, well, no doubt. I have a lot of friends that now they're working from home. I invited them all to start doing yoga and to start getting motivated within each other. And guess how many people I have in the Zoom yoga? Nobody. Nobody. And it's sad. It's sad because the longer we take to bring consciousness out, the longer we are going to be in this process. So a lot of people, they're even making fun of themselves and saying, oh my God, I'm gaining so much weight. Have you even seen that my pants don't fit me anymore? And I'm like, oh my goodness. We do have a lot of lack of consciousness. And the United States maybe needed to have those high numbers. It's sad to say, but
yeah, I mean, it is just the beginning for us. There's going to be a lot more. And they're preparing us for that, right? So they're telling us to expect 100,000 dead.
yeah, it's sad that they even are expecting 1,000 to 200 amounts of deaths. Like, how can this be? You shouldn't even have expectations over somebody dying over this virus. I don't think China ever had expectations. What they did is that they shut down. They knew what was the solution because they've had that wisdom for years, and they had to bring it out again. So we'll see now how things go over there. I heard that the wet markets, they already been banned. So we'll see where it goes, but definitely it's interesting.
Since no one's in the queue now, I'll jump in. I think, as we think about this food distribution, what food to eat and how to deliver it, and it's really represents a complete radical transformation in the United States anyway, in terms of how we see the economy and what game we're playing, right? And fundamentally, the game that we were born into is a game of hoarding. And if you want to be secure, if you want to be comfortable, if you want to eat, you got to go out there and make money, either start a business or go work for someone else or whatever. And since we're at a time now when people cannot go out and work, we're forbidden to go out and work. I mean, and we're in this, is it the chrysalis state, Sailesh, of the caterpillar? It's the perfect opportunity to reconfigure and redesign everything. But time is running out really on two major fronts. One is with the loss of global dimming, planetary overheating is spiking even more than it was. I mean, we had tremendous urgency before coronavirus and the attendant loss of global dimming.
Right.
Now we have that much more urgency. The second great urgency is that people are running out of food, right? Some have more than others, but the food in the pantry is declining. And this is going to reach a breaking point if it's not solved, because when people get hungry, they get desperate. And when they get desperate, they leave their homes and do dangerous things in order to feed themselves and feed their family. So it feels to me like we have a very limited window of time in which to address this and go inward and say, all right, that old modality created all these problems. And it's this modality, for me, the roots are separation, seeing ourselves as separate from each other and separate from nature. And so it seems to me we have a golden opportunity to address the problems at their roots, especially now that we're all home and we can participate in these meetings. We can participate in this collective intelligence. So,
Damon,
yeah,
quick point that James made me think of. The amount of antibiotic that we are having to pump into the livestock and the chickens in order to prevent us from really all dying very quickly of all kinds of diseases. And chicken, for example, carries with it E. coli on it. It goes into the bath, and Dr. Forget his name, not Dr. Greger, but the other very interesting doctor, he talks about how that leads to so many urinary tract infections. But the amount of antibiotic that is having to be used is probably, I don't know how many tens of millions or hundreds of millions, but think of how much that money could be used to pay for free food. We're protecting ourselves with antibiotics at the same time we are making ourselves resistant. So they're always behind the 8 ball trying to find the next antibiotic. So it's just an insane way to feed ourselves. That amount of money could probably pay for free food for everybody. Just wondering.
Well, I mean, done right, food does not have to be expensive, right? If we find the right mix of plant-based foods. Anyway, I'm going to turn it back to Sailesh. Go ahead, Sailesh.
No, that's correct. It's again, if you start also including food that people can grow in their home, and contribute to the community, it doesn't have to be that expensive at all. The whole foods delivery can be almost self-sustaining. Right? You probably only have to pay for grain, and grain can be stored for a long time. Or you start growing more potatoes, and the potatoes could be the base. Dr. McDougall actually said there was one guy who lived on potatoes for 1 year. So you could do that too. Just potatoes.
Oh my goodness. When I was little, growing up, my parents, they did a whole week, and I was probably like 5 years old. They did a whole week of just fruits, a fruit regimen, I guess you can call it. And then the next week we did a vegetable, and it was all raw. And I remember, now that you say about that potato, I remember taking my first bite into a raw potato at 5 years old, and that is something that I kept in my memory because it was nasty.
Yeah, potatoes have to be cooked.
Yes, it was very challenging. I cannot stand, and these are things that you keep on your subconscious. I cannot stand the smell of raw potatoes. I'll eat them cooked, or hash browns and things like that. But raw potato, automatically my mind goes into when I was 5 years old. But you know what? I do thank my parents. I thank my parents because they showed me how to eat properly, even though now as an older person, I got lost into work and that whole routine of having a full-time job and not eating properly.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that initiation starts from home. So first you start within yourself, and then you share that wisdom with your kids, your family members, and then you share it with other people. But sometimes at home, it even comes challenging. All my brothers, they eat meat, and they will not go vegan at all. We had Osvaldo here last weekend at the block party, and he even makes fun of vegan people. Sadly, their immune system is really low. I'm concerned about my nieces and my nephews because they're always sick. They always have colds and flu, and these are the most vulnerable people to this virus.
Right.
But yeah.
If they had access to free food, would they go vegan?
I don't know. I want to think that life will push us all to be vegan, and we are all going to have to be in that path, whether they like it or not, whether we like it or not. So I guess it's just a matter of life teaching us in the bad ways, in the most bad ways. Otherwise, we don't get the point. This is how human functions now. We have to learn in the bad way to obtain that wisdom and to not fall back into that.
But just think about 2 months ago, if someone had told you that we are going to live in a way that would reduce our emissions by 30% and that we would all be sitting at home, not doing much, you would have said you're crazy, right?
Right.
So we did change. I mean, we did change our behaviors quite a bit, all of us. And now people are hardly flying anymore, right? I mean, look at the airplanes. They're all pretty much grounded. Look how clear the sky is outside here. It wasn't like this.
Have you seen the stars at nighttime? Oh my God, the sky looks beautiful.
I know. Yeah. So I have faith that we are part of something much larger than us, and that we are going to be shown the way. We just have to keep our eyes open and to keep at it. And it's part of, it is already originating, we already see that happening.
I'll just add that it's Dr. Neil Bernard who talks about where viruses originate and talking about how E. coli is on a lot of chicken and it leads to urinary tract infections. It's only an 11-minute video. I put it into the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Someone was telling me about 3 days ago, we were talking about this virus, and I think that person is in El Salvador. It's from a person from the organization. And he was telling me that we have to get even more prepared with essential things, with I don't know, like one of those medical kits and all these things, because he says that with this next full moon that we're gonna have, that the earth is gonna be shaking a little bit, almost like to tell us, hey, wake up, like get the point. So yeah, he was saying, Mayra, get your family prepared with even more essential stuff, because it seems like from the way the planets are aspecting and everything, it seems like the earth is going to be shaking. So I was devastated to hear that, and I hope it doesn't really happen. I hope that this is just something that is predicted, but that we can avoid it to happen somehow. I know that tomorrow there's going to be millions of people meditating because there is a portal open. And I invite everybody here to meditate at any time you guys want. 7 p.m. is the most proper time to do it. But hopefully it doesn't happen, because if it does, that is just going to be devastating. I've been following the earthquake tracker, not because I get obsessed over that at all, but I'm just trying to be a little bit precautious and just trying to be safe. But I have heard that we recently had a 6.7 earthquake in Boise, Idaho, where it has I don't think we've never experienced an earthquake over there. And then in Utah, so who knows? Hopefully it doesn't, but we'll see.
All right, James has his hand up. Thanks for your patience, James.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I'm going to go back just prior to that. I just agreeing with Dr. Sailesh Reshna. I like looking at it from as you said, from an engineering point of view. When you come across something and it's not working, then you just stop it and you figure out another way of working working it. And I think, I agree that the COVID is something now that's making humanity sit back and think, because we have to become aware of this. It's not working. Things aren't working the way we're doing it. We're not doing something right, so we need to change. And
Right.
talking about it is going to help to figure out the changes. So I agree with that.
Right. It's making a lot of people think, making a lot of people reflect on where they are, what are they doing. And I have a cousin who sold a company and then joined another company, is doing sales in that company, and now, the sales have dried up. No one wants to buy anything. No, he's thinking about, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? So, yeah, it is a reset for a lot of people.
Yeah. We can continue with the system we have and the way we're working it now, and face our demise, or we can change it and try and prolong that, or
Right.
prolong our lives, and prolong the beauty of life.
Absolutely. Jackie, go ahead.
I was just thinking about what we were talking about, the food delivery, and how I got calls this week. And it just was very heart heavy to receive calls from the community members that they're hungry and they're looking for food. And I was thinking about how, regarding how the transformation is happening through the 7 core shifts, how we can accomplish, just by this one action, how we can accomplish so many of those shifts. Not only are we being selfless and we are being of service, but we're also reflecting to the community members who we are, what our mission and our vision is. We are shining a light of truth and action with no reciprocity. We have no attachments to what we're here to be of service and bring food and bring health, without any attachments with whether you want it or not, without any defensiveness, whether your choice is with us or not. We're just going to be there in service. And I think that's such a strong message of action to reflect back on community members that either have preconceived ideas of who we are as vegans, or just about the food itself. And also, when you start feeling better, you are better, your actions are better. And when we start eating whole food plant-based, it's almost like, at least the transformation for me, my body felt so clear, my mind felt so clear, like I felt my energy I felt revitalized. And I think that transformation within themselves, eating a whole food plant-based diet automatically makes people feel better. But also those that are suffering with disease, they're going to within days start feeling better. So just by introducing that food and helping people feel better, they awaken that consciousness within themselves just by inviting that food into their bodies, just by giving their cells an opportunity to swim in a nourishing soup so that they can actualize better. And I think just this one action can accomplish so many of our goals in this transition, that I think this is the most powerful thing we can do, is shine that mirror, is create an environment for people to feel better, and also reflect back that they're the consciousness that lies within us without any attachments. I mean, just to me, what a beautiful, strong message I could be with just this one action.
Jackie, I would like to connect with you on the community members who are looking for food. And because I'm happy to cook, because I get calls from my granddaughter saying, "Grandpa, I need more soup." So I have to make soup for her. And so I'd be happy to make this soup for anybody, right? Because it keeps her going, the soup.
I was thinking of creating something where like that's why I came to the meeting and to see what we can do, because when she called me, she said, "Do you know if there's any vegan boxes?" Because we requested food boxes, but they had meat. And so then I went straight back to the community and started, reaching out and found some food for her so they could connect and get the food together. So there's people that are looking for meals, and then there's people that are looking for food boxes. So it's like, then what system can we create as a community to satisfy both of those needs? And then how do we work with the farmers in our area? Do we work with these local organic farmers to then contribute the food and be that in the Aquarius system where they're contributing the food, the restaurants are providing the food, those of us that can shop and provide boxes so people can cook for themselves. Like, how do we organize this in a way that the action can be, and we can mitigate that number, at least with our action, as much as possible, that 200,000 number that they're estimating for us. We know as a community, because we live this lifestyle, that we can mitigate that number drastically. How do we go about doing that and organizing so quickly with this, that we're still in the system as it is right now? I'm sorry if that's like a big question.
Right.
And I posit that's a question for the collective intelligence to answer, because the current economic system, government, banking, private sector, all the way down, is focused on scarcity and concentrating more and more wealth in the hands of those who have the most wealth, right? So to even think about a system where all of society gets together to deliver food as a basic human right to people, do you do it with money? Do you do it without money? If you do it with money, whose money? The government money? Do they just print up a bunch more debt? That's what I would do if I were in charge of the governments of the world. I'd say, all right, it's time to use whatever money we have. And if we don't have enough money, we either print more or borrow more or whatever, buy the foods from the farmers directly, right? Work with, restaurants, bakeries, whatever, to prepare that food. Anyway, but what I'm saying is it takes this whole system thinking and a whole system transformation. In fact, this may be the crisis which forces the system to get its act together food-wise. Because if we don't get our act together food-wise and make sure that people have food, we're going to end up in a Mad Max scenario, right? Just a totally dystopian scenario where hungry people are going around killing other people, breaking into homes, whatever. So anyway, I just wanted to propose it as a challenge for collective intelligence to solve. James has his hand up. Speaking of collective intelligence, go ahead, James.
Thanks, Jim. I would like to posit there as well now that first of all, I'm not vegan. I'd like to say that anyway here, like so that the wider audience on YouTube sees that not everybody on this forum is vegan. Although I have learned from being on this forum now the hypocrisy of my beliefs and my eating habits, and I'm learning from that, obviously, and I'm engaging in the conversation to learn more and to perhaps, obviously, to convince myself of change. It's through conversation that we do that. But in saying that, the majority, I would posit that like it doesn't have to seem like such a big thing to be to become vegetarian or vegan, in the sense that majority of our foods anyway are produced from grains and vegetables anyway. Like we right. Only have the meat is only one portion of our on our plate, and for majority they don't have even have the portion of meat on the plate. It's processed or whatever it is. And I'm just saying it doesn't have to sound like such a really bad thing, because we're already majority of the way there. We just
Right.
have the meat is just one portion on the plate. So it doesn't have to sound so like such a bad thing, but it is definitely the way to change things. We already have the systems in place that produce most of those foods that are produced by grains anyway and everything else. We just need to get the government to see that in order to provide those grains for the people to produce the foods, stop giving it to the animals that are just wasting it by consuming it, and we're only getting a small portion of food off of them. So it just makes sense, simple sense.
Yes, in every way. Thank you so much, James, for that input. I mean, it is in every way, it's 83% or 82% of the food we eat is already plant-based in terms of calories. It's 85% in terms of weight, and it's 63% in terms of protein. If you just count just the protein, 63% of what we eat is already plant-based. So, and to produce that other 15% of the animal foods by weight and 18% by calories, we are running all these slaughterhouses in which people are getting sick because they have to stand so close to each other. So not only are they slaughtering animals, they're getting sick themselves. So why would we do that to our fellow human beings and not just to our fellow animals? So right now there are so many reasons pushing us into abandoning our mistreatment of animals. Not just the pandemics, but what we are doing to each other, and what we are doing to our doctors. Why would we deliberately go to the doctor with these bad illnesses and get them sick? And so a lot of them are dying too from this illness. So the more we take care of our own health so that we don't have to go to the hospital in the first place, the more we help them. Not just doctors, the healthcare workers, there are nurses, there are environmental workers there who are cleaning up the ICUs. They are getting sick.
Yeah, this definitely calls for a whole system radical transformation.
Right.
All righty, Stephanie has her hand up, followed by Miles. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Hi guys, sorry I was running through to and from the kitchen. I just wanted to add there kind of what my dad was saying as well. Just to put it out there, I'm also not a vegan, but I am learning since joining the Block Party and then listening to Dr. Sailesh Rao, sorry, I'm out of breath.
Thank you.
Every week, and I also had a conversation with Jackie myself yesterday, and just seeing from a common person on the ground, besides the obvious of the cruelty to the animals and everything else, one thing that I only learned being in the Block Party was about the medicinal side. And as a person with illness and looking at natural medicine, well, trying to look at natural medicine my whole life, and even putting that forward to doctors, and they say, oh no, you need protein, you need meat, you need to gain weight, so you need to eat dairy and all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't have been told that if I hadn't come across people like yourselves. And then speaking to Jackie, actually a living testament of that, it does work when it comes to these diseases and illnesses, blows my mind. And like I said to Jackie, if I like my kind of what my dad was saying, like if somebody just told me not go vegan, but here's a diet and you will feel better without having to put a tablet that will give you X amount of symptoms into your system, I'm going to eat that food. I'm going to want to feel better, and I'm going to do it naturally without side effects. And I just wonder how we could put that out there as more of like, some people are just scared of the word vegan, and there's a lot of stigma that comes with that. So how can we just put out there health, like, naturopathic medicine should be recognized as well under public health care. We should get that. It shouldn't be a privatized system when it comes to those, as well as yoga, meditation, acupuncture. All those things should come under healthcare and not be privatized separate systems. And that's why I have a little bit of worry, because the systems are obviously they're created for profit. Right. So is it just a case of like, we are who we are and we just be who we are and try and spread the word? Because I do wonder, like that, I said this yesterday again to Jackie, like if they told you garlic is good for a cold, then they're going to give you garlic infused medicine. why not just eat the bloody garlic, you know? So how do we get this very simple, in-your-face message across to everybody? It's like, stop being stupid, open your eyes. Turmeric is this new fashion thing now as well. I was saying to Jackie, not many Irish people would have turmeric, but me and my dad would eat curries. We love curries and cook it from scratch for years. So we'd eat all these things, raw ginger, raw garlic, turmeric, all that. And now turmeric you can buy as a fashion tablet, you know, for health. And that just baffles me. Like, you know, you're actually going to take something that you could buy from the shelf and put it into this system with extra X, Y, and Z. And this is going to make you better, you know. So I suppose, again, the pessimistic side of me is just like profit is obviously prevailing here, you know, when it comes to health.
Right. You're absolutely right. And it's actually part of the colonial system. Where do you live, Stephanie?
I'm from Cork in Ireland. I'm living in Dublin.
Okay, yes. So it's part of the colonial system. So we've all been colonized into thinking like this. And it's, I mean, it's not just, you know, not blaming colonial countries. It's the system we are in. And people of England are also colonized. People of the UK are also colonized. People of America are also colonized. We have all been colonized into thinking things that are not true. So it's about, you know, overcoming that, the fear of the truth. We have that fear of the truth now. Because when you hear the word vegan, and people are saying, be kind to all life. That's what vegan means, right? So I tell people, you know, when they tell me it sends them the wrong way, I said, just replace vegan with kind to animals and read that again and tell me, does that feel bad? Because that's all it is, you know, being kind to animals, be kind to each other. We are also animals. We have to be kind to each other. And making that normal. Making that normal. So, and that's what the earth is calling for. I mean, that's what we are all being called to do. If we are kind to each other, we would make sure that the other person is not sick and they don't have to go to the hospital. And my nephew is working there on the front lines. I don't want him to get sick either. So I want him to have less people in the ER. So it's all connected.
Exactly. Therefore, whole system transformation, radical in terms of getting to the roots.
Right.
If you want to solve these problems, you've come to the right place. The Collective Intelligence Network, and that's our new paradigm, is, I'll just make a quick plug, and then Miles and Jackie have their hands raised. You know, going back 2, 3, 4, 5 months ago, my thinking was, okay, we start with this, what we have now, and then we branch out from here. And the new paradigm that I'm embracing is based on just observing. Zoom video conferences are popping up everywhere.
Right.
Without Jamin Shively having to invite them to do it. You know, oh, what's going on? So our new paradigm is, rather than try to grow from here, it's, whoa, recognize that lily pads are popping up all over the giant lake. And how do we connect these lily pads together and give them a focus? So the collective intelligence, the raw materials, all these growing lily pads, it's there. We need to, so how do we get all these lily pads? How do we get humanity focused on the right questions, the right memes, the right story, the right proto story, even the beginning of a story, right? And that's what we're exploring here. So I just wanted to make a plug for collective intelligence, and also welcome Samantha. Okay, got a little feedback from Samantha. Welcome Samantha. Welcome Jeffrey. And Miles had his hand up, followed by Jackie, and of course Sailesh, you have priority as our guest of honor. So go ahead, Miles. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just something for Stephanie and anyone else who's not vegan. I'm not 100% vegan either, because I'm in a household that other people are not vegan, but we're working on it. So Nevertheless, one of the things I suggest you try, looks like, do we have trolls? One of the things that I would suggest is, or what I've even done, is to say, when you're talking about the latest virus, I've said the
Hello, Miles.
Hi, Samantha. So when you talk about any virus, I predicate
My name is Samantha.
meat and dairy virus. Meat and dairy virus COVID-19. We're soon to be faced with meat and dairy virus swine flu. And also another meat and dairy virus, avian flu. And people will maybe say, what are you talking about, meat and dairy virus? Why do you add that on? Well, it's because, look, here's the facts.
Right.
Oh, and one more thing for Jackie. The other thing to think about is the amount of subsidy to store excess food and cheese. How much money we are subsidizing this industry. In Canada, we are even in many respects worse because we have subsidies. But I mean, we have quotas. The farmer gets to produce so much milk, but they will actually they'll actually dump the milk, and like, what is that costing us? All this waste, and there's people that are hungry for good, healthy food. So we have to go after these systems of quotas, dumping, and storage of meat and cheese and such to get the money to feed people. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. It's the whole system. The whole system. We just have to create a new value system and put it in place and let that flourish so that the old can eventually die out.
All right, looks like we had a couple of hackers who I had to remove. Child hackers, apparently. And Jackie, you've been waiting to speak. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering if that is maybe an approach that we are not, or like I didn't even think about what the pre-vegans are kind of bringing up is like, should we be talking more about the health of the food that we're, instead of labeling it like, I don't know, even labeling it like whole food plant-based, just like healthful, revitalizing food, and maybe start showing testimonies like the reversal of diseases, like what Stephanie was saying, like sharing my story of healing and how many diseases we reversed. Yeah, maybe that's the way to start sharing it. And maybe even part of the block party to start talking about how some of us have reversed diseases and have regained health and vitality through our lifestyle choices. And could be actual testimonies that can answer questions live. Like, I'm here, I'm literally here, and I reversed 4 diseases myself and 7 in my family. Like, let me just share the story. And this is just about the food choices and why we went that direction. And I think that is also more receptive, I think. So I don't know if that's something maybe that we could start thinking about doing.
Yeah, in fact, in our the app that we are working on, we are calling it immune boosting foods. So immunity boosting foods, because that's what is needed right now. And those are the foods that will be available for free. And Dr. McDougall says he has like thousands of such recipes that he could use.
And I'd just like to add, if that's okay, like it just so happens for me, it's great. I love my veg and my fruit, and I love that food more than anything else. So for me, it's absolutely no problem. But for other people, like the likes of my partner, if he's asleep, so I hope you don't mind me saying this, but he wouldn't barely eat a vegetable when I first met him. No, I'm working on it. He's eating vegetables, but even yesterday, he would be totally against vegan. And yesterday, when I had a chat with him about on the health side of things, that there's this diet that might actually help me reverse or maintain my pain, he was saying he'd even go on it with me. So that wasn't even going like pushing veganism on him, and he was just like, oh, I do that as well, like, you know. And his mother has diabetes, my mother has diabetes, and I'm not quite sure how they would take it, but for somebody who didn't even eat an onion 3 years ago to say that he'd contemplate vegan. That's a huge thing, and that was just pushing it from the health side of things.
Right. Thank you for that. That's very encouraging to know.
Beautiful. All right, Miles, go for it.
No, I'm done. Probably.
Okay, sorry, must have been it. Yeah, no problem. All righty. Well, we have Sailesh for a few more minutes. Was it a quarter till that you need to move to the next meeting?
Yeah, quarter till I have to be on the other one, but I need to eat a little bit now.
Oh, okay. Sure. Well, we can take, Sailesh, feel free to take a break whenever you need. We are very grateful for all the time that we have with you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. See you next time, Sailesh.
Yeah, see you next time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much, Sailesh. And
Bye-bye.
we'll continue here. Since Sailesh is going to take a lunch break, maybe we could all, this might be a good time for all of us to take a break. Who's wanting to take a break? Okay. Should we do maybe a half an hour break? Does that sound about right to people? Sound good? Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's good.
Why don't we do half an hour break? I will do my best to keep an eye on the screen here for people who come in, since we now have a waiting room. Let me just give a couple of minutes update for those who've joined, who didn't hear what was going on. So we got hacked earlier. A lot of Zoom meetings that are just open to anyone are getting hacked, and like a whole bunch of haters will swarm in at the same time and then just start saying all kinds of vulgar, hateful things and screen sharing and all that. Like, for example, someone's now trying to get in. I'm going to let them in and we'll see who they are. Liam. Hello, Liam. Welcome. Well, okay, so that's an example of a hacker. Thank you, Liam, for providing that real life example. And I just removed them so they won't be able to re-enter. But anyway, so anyway, we've solved that now with the waiting room. So basically, when you enter, you're put in the waiting room, and then I have to manually let you in. And then I keep a very close eye, like I did for Liam, and took them out appropriately. So anyway, Myra writes, oh my goodness, people need to get a life. Yeah, no kidding. We either get life real quick together, or we're going down the tubes together. So, all right, well, it's 37 after. Why don't we say that we will resume in earnest at 10 after to give us a little over half an hour to make food. I'm going to try to relocate myself outside in the process. And again, I'll keep an eye on the waiting room to make sure that good people don't get frozen out and bad people can get weeded out. All right, any comments before we adjourn? I'm going to pause recording, by the way.